Hey there, good morning everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here with the show that we do once a month, usually the middle of the month. In this case, there's like kind of 5 weekends, so we're doing the third one. And what we're doing today is we're doing this episode of a show I call Playlist. So with the playlist, we have a number of things we normally do. One of them is I will talk about what has come off of my playlist, what has gone into my playlist. Also going to talk about some of the stuff I've been listening to lately as it pertains to possible shows in the future, I guess. And then at the end, I will give you a top 5 albums on my list for this current playlist. So first we'll talk about the albums that have come off my playlist. This one came off today, Hawk Winds, The Stories from Time and Space. So this is the new album that came out last year. It's okay. I don't mind it. But I just think that the spot on the playlist could be better served. So it's going to go... It'll be periodic. I'll periodically listen to it, and then if I feel like it needs to come back on the playlist, I will put it back on. But I just feel like it's not an album that I want to be listening to weekly, every week. And I don't think it's going to improve much from beyond that at this point in time. So I decided that I was going to take it out of the playlist, at least for the time being. The next one out of the playlist is The Serpent Rising from Styx. It was almost 6 months on the playlist, or 5 months. It was between 5 and 6 months on the playlist. Pretty lengthy amount of time for an album that never got huge reception in the mainstream media or anything. And it's a really good album. I don't think it's of the 3 I've listened to at this point, Styx 2, and this one. I think it's probably in the middle of the 3. I do like it quite a bit. I don't think I like it quite as much as Styx 2, but still a solid album. So it's coming out. Next up, Supertramp's debut album. This is a good album. The 2 primary reasons I took it out is it had been in there about 6 months. It was doing well. And it was starting to dip over the horizon and heading down. I didn't really want to burn it out because I quite like it. It's a very different Supertramp album. It has some Supertramp sounds to it, but I think it actually sounds a little bit more like early Genesis. But I do like it quite a bit. It's a very good album, and the cover is fantastic, of course. And the last album that I've taken out of the playlist is this one, Silent Cries and Mighty Echoes, probably in the 7 to 8 month range on the playlist. Did pretty well for me. I made my top 5 albums for a while. Didn't make the number 1 spot. There was too much heavy competition. It's a strong album with a very Pink Floyd-ish flavor to it. And I like the cover, of course, but I like almost all of Eloy's covers. So, yeah, it did well. I didn't want to burn it out, so I pulled it out. Now, for the albums that replace them on the playlist. So, I'll need to do this here. Sorry. Okay, so the first one, obviously, was going to be this one, Opeth's Last Will and Testament. This is a new album. I expect this album will do really particularly well on my playlist. It's hard to say if it will be 100% successful, since this is fairly new band to me. New in the sense that I've been listening to them. I've got a couple of their albums already. And I really like the progressive sound of their music. The vocalist is excellent. The music itself is great. I think this album, there's a nice shot of them in the back too here. Really good. So this album is now on my playlist. I look forward to it making my top 5 list. Maybe even number 1. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it will. The next one is from Gentle Giant, Three Friends. So this is the original Gentle Giant for me, the one that I bought back in the 1980s. I do like the album. It's growing and more on me. In the past, I didn't like the album, so it has the single distinction of being the only Gentle Giant album I didn't like initially and didn't like for a long time. But once I turned that corner and became a Gentle Giant fan, this album started to rise to the point where I wanted to put it back in the playlist and give it a fair shake. I'm thinking it'll do much better. I call this the blonde Gentle Giant as opposed to the brown Gentle Giant on the first album because they're identical covers, as many people know. So this one is new to my playlist. Next up is from the Styx wooden disc, the complete wooden nickel record discography. So Serpent on the Rising came out, and what I've been doing with some bands when I have this kind of a setup, there's a couple of others with a box set setup. I'm just, every time one of them comes out, I put one back in. So we're putting Man of Miracles in there now. I'm expecting that this will end up being my favorite of the 4 wooden nickel albums. I'm not 100% sure it will be, but I suspect that it will be. And so I'm looking forward to really actually playing it quite a bit. So that's one of the albums. And the last album, which went in this morning, is a double album from my band I like quite a bit. It's on the Electric P label, IQ's Subterranean. I've heard good stuff about this. I've actually listened to this album in its entirety twice now. I'm expecting it will do quite well with me. It's got we'll call it the pink disc, and the other one is the blue disc. So 2 discs. It will get a lot of attention because it's IQ, and I've liked their previous stuff quite a bit. I don't know if it'll become one of my favorites or maybe it'll phase out. I'm not even 100% sure, but I'm giving it a 100% chance here. So IQ Subterranean is the last of the new albums in my playlist for this month. As far as listening goes, what I've been doing is I've been collecting new stuff, not physically collecting it, but collecting the information that I get off of other channels, off of a list of so a couple of music, I don't even know what you want to call them. Anyways, I go on the internet, I look them up, and when I find stuff that is of interest to me, I've used Wikipedia, I've used Bandcamp. There's a couple of others too that I've used, and I'm just taking the stuff on them that looks like it might be interesting to do a video for as far as what's new. And I've taken these albums down, and what I've been doing is I've been listening to enough of the band so I get a feel for it, or if it's a particular album, the album, and then I'm deciding on whether I want to do an album, what's new list. That's the way I'm going to do it this year. Last year I was kind of making the list, picking it from the list and doing it, and there was a couple of times I thought this is not really what I want. So now it's going to have to earn its way to the spot, I guess is the best way to put it. So so that's what I've been doing as far as listening to. I've had a few bands suggested to me recently, and I've been listening to them. One of the bands, which was highly recommended, I really had to say I'd take a pass on it because it had too much of a grunge feel for it. And for those of you who know me, they know I'm not a grunge guy. I don't really like the grunge music, with the exception of maybe Soundgarden. The rest of it, it's not that I don't dislike any of it. It just doesn't do anything for me. That's why I don't really follow it. So I decided not to do that band. Okay, and as far as my top 5 albums for the month, we're going to get to that now. We've got, so I'm going to give them to you in reverse order. So this is number 5 for the month. Blue Oyster Cult Spectres. It's just come on my top 5 list. This is an excellent album. I wasn't sure what to expect because I've really liked some Blue Oyster Cult stuff quite a bit, and others maybe not as much. So I wasn't sure if this was going to fall into the not as much category or the like a lot category. I think it's going to be in the latter of those two. So Blue Oyster Cult's Spectres. This is the album for those of you who are new to Blue Oyster Cult, which has Godzilla as the opening track, but there's a lot of really strong stuff on this album. Next up, in number 4 spot is Wobblers, Dwellers of the Deep. This was moving up, but it's kind of going sideways a bit. And I don't think it's because of the album itself. It's been on the playlist for maybe 7 months, so maybe it's a little bit maybe it's getting a little long in the tooth, but also there's a lot of competition for those top spots, so it's going to end up in the 4th spot today. Number 3 continues to move up ever so slowly. I don't know if it'll have enough firepower to get to number 1, but I really like this album a lot. A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. It's not really weakened at all. It's still kind of on the rise. So I'm curious to see if it can make the number 1 spot or not, being an album that I was familiar with before I actually put it in the playlist. That would be unprecedented. Not very many bands get to that top spot if I'm actually familiar with their album from before, only because they're a little bit worn when they start. Next up, now falling to number 2, but has had a fantastic run, was my second favorite album of last year, Iron Maiden's No Prayer for the Dying. This is an absolute killer album. The more I listen to it, the more I realize there's no weak tracks on this album. There are some very powerful tracks, but there's also a lot of really good tracks as well. So I do like this a lot. No Prayer for the Dying, Iron Maiden, number 2. So number 1 is going to go, and I wasn't sure this album was going to make it there. I think it's a better album than the first one that I've been listening to, but I wasn't sure if it had enough force to make it to the top, considering the competition. But this is The Chronicles of Father Robin. This is the Songs and Tales of Eowa, which is book 3. This is book 3, The Magical Chronicles. Yeah, it's a fairly lengthy thing. It's been on the playlist now. I can't see from here, but I think it's been on the playlist for maybe 6 to 7 months. That sounds about right. It's doing very well. I don't think it's weakened at all. It's going to have some heavy competition coming up from the bottom, though, soon. And I did manage to purchase the book 2, which is on its way to my house now, so I will have the entire Chronicles. I'm curious to see if this flies well. Now, for me, the first album has the better artwork. This is okay. It's okay, but I think the music on here is better than the one on the first album, and I'm not, of course, sure about the second. I've heard varying degrees of liking and disliking of the second one, but I'll judge it myself when it gets here. So that's it. Those are my 5 favorite albums for the playlist for this month. I'll give them to you in reverse, so just so you don't, in case you didn't get a chance to see it the first time around. The Chronicles of Father Robin, Songs and Tales of Eowa, Book 3, Magical Chronicles, number 1. Number 2, Iron Maiden's No Prayer for the Dying. Number 3, the Beatles' Hard Day's Night, their, musical score, or whatever you want to call it. Number 4, Wobblers, The Dwellers of the Deep. Number 5, Blue Oyster Cult's Spectres. So those are the top 5. So there you have it. That's my playlist for the month of January. And of course, we'll be back next month with another playlist. It generally seems to work out that about 4 to 5 albums will change on the playlist over a course of a month. Sometimes as little as 2 or 3. And then the top 5 usually change fairly slowly, so you might have a new one in there once in a while, and then the others will kind of move around a bit. But once the album generally comes off the top 5, if it's a top 5, it moves off the top 5. It doesn't usually stay on my playlist for very long after that, because it gets kind of burned out. Drinking tea today for a change. Don't normally do that. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the playlist. We will be back next month with another playlist, and I hope to see you throughout the week and throughout the month. So have yourself a good day. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. And if you have any comments about anything I've said, you can put that in the comment section below. We will see you then. Take care and have yourself a good evening. Goodbye.